Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rob Commodari. I'm coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm so excited to be a part of this fabulous group, this Passionpreneur Speaker Summit here with Blaney Teal. Thank you, Blaney, so much for the opportunity to be with everybody. I'm excited about it, and I'm fired up for all of you, man, to just experience these next 3 or 4 days with all these unbelievable speakers. So thank you again. As I said, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised here. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is living a life of fulfillment. How do we get to a place of living a fulfilling life? Now, how many out there have ever experienced life at its fullest and really recognize it or were aware of it? Or how many of you out there may have, you've accomplished some things, but you may have felt empty? So if you're one of those people that's been going through life and running the rat race, so to speak, and you're not feeling fulfilled, just give me a thumbs up out there. I'd love to see who you are out there, because I think everybody's experiences that at some point. So I wrote a book. About 8-9 months ago. It was published in November. It came live on Amazon back in January. And the title of my book, and I'll move to the side here for you, is Better Than You Think. And it's about developing awareness to live a more fulfilling life. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is living a more fulfilled life. How do you do that? Well, number one, we got to develop and hone that skill of awareness. It's like turning the radar on and becoming more aware of who you are, what makes you tick, what your surroundings are. So it's about awareness. The whole book is about awareness. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that voice inside of us. There's always a voice inside of us. And, a friend of mine said one time, he said, you go to the next level in your life and the next level in your business when you start listening to that voice inside of you. So that's going to lead us into the phase of this presentation this morning. It's about the seasons of life. What season are we in? And we've had one hell of a season here these last 3 or 4 months with the whole COVID thing going on. So we're going to talk about the seasons and how that can impact you as far as having a fulfilling life. And then finally, I'm going to let you go with asking you the one final question. And I think it could be the most important question of today is, what's holding you back? What's holding you back from being the best person you could be? What's holding you back from living that fulfilling life that you so desire, that most of us desire, and many of us may never get to that point? So again, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I hope you're fired up. If you're fired up, say aye. Aye, baby. That's what I want to hear. Anyway, so I said I wrote this book. I wrote this book about 9 months ago, but it really started back in 1990. So 1990, I graduated from college and I took a job as a stockbroker. And I was poor growing up. So I had a 1978 LTD2. I was driving back and forth to work in Palm Beach, Florida. I played baseball down there in Florida. But what happened, I graduated from school. I'm done with tests. I'm done with reading. And all I wanted to do is make money. So I started working at the stock brokerage firm. And I come in one morning and I look on the desk next to me. And this guy's got this book on his desk. And it's called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And I had never sold anything in my life before. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at that book. I'm like, maybe I should read this thing. So I asked my friend if I could take it home and read it that night. And that I did. It took me about 2.5 hours to read that book. And then my life changed. The trajectory of my life changed the moment I finished reading that book. And what happened was I got up the next morning, went to Barnes & Nobles, and I bought all of Og Mandino's books. And so that was in July of 1990. I read that first book. And since then, I've read over 900 books on the topics of personal growth and development. And so they've been business books, spiritual books, but self-help books, whatever you want to call it. But I've been in this world for about 30 years reading and studying this material. So it was about 2005, I decided that, hey, I wrote a goal, I wanted to write a book. Now, I was reading and I was having this impact and being inspired. And I go tell people, hey, you need to read this book. You need to read that book. And a lot of times when you shove things down people's throats, they react in the opposite way you want them to react, and they won't read. So how many of you out there have ever pushed something on somebody and you can feel the pushback? Or how many of you out there have ever been pushed on? Like somebody's coming to you and say, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And the more somebody pushes you, the less you really want to dive into do it. So if you've been in that situation, just you go in the chat box and give me a thumbs up there. Anyway, so I decided I wanted to write a book. And all I really wanted to do is share. I wanted to share what I've learned over the years and what I've experienced and how it's helped me grow and become a better person. And so it was quite the journey here. And so 2005, I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I was worthy enough. I'm like, who's going to read my stuff? So, I mean, anybody out there feel like, hey, I'm not good enough to do something? I'm sure most of you have, and or some, at least some of you have, and I can only speak for myself. But if you've had that feeling before, just in the chat box, give me another thumbs up or say, okay, I've been there. So, in 2005, I said, hey, Kate, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote one chapter in 2005, and then I put it down. And then 2009, I picked it back up and I wrote another chapter. So for a guy who wants to write a book, I'm on a really good pace here. 2 chapters in 4 years. I'm doing great. Anyway, like 2014 came, I wrote 2 chapters. And I just didn't feel, again, that worthiness, or that I was capable of doing this and pulling this off and really impacting, inspiring people. So what happened was, it was about 2016. I was with 3 of my friends, and we do a little mastermind and get together every year. And it was December 2016, and a friend of mine, I think it's 3 friends of mine, were sitting at the table and we're talking about our wins and losses for the year. And it was my turn to talk about what losses I incurred during the year, like what goals I had that I didn't accomplish. And I'm looking across the table with my 3 buddies, and I said, look, as you know, I have not written a book yet. Before I could even finish the statement, a buddy of mine across the table says, Rob, you're either lying to us or you're full of crap. And it hit me, man. It hit me right in the chest. I'm like, man, he's calling me a liar. And my other buddy looked at me and said, Rob, he's right. And the third guy just shrugged his shoulders and said, Rob, what do you want us to say? You've been talking about writing a book for all these years. You haven't done it yet. So anyway, I put pen to paper from January 1st, 2017 to June 23rd. And I got up every morning at 4 a.m. And from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. every morning, I wrote. And I wrote my last sentence on June 23rd of 2017. But it took about 2.5 years longer to go through all the edits, 14 edits later. And a lot of coloring on the manuscript. So it's pretty humbling when you submit a manuscript of 257 pages in black and white, and it comes back to you more red than black. So very humbling experience. So needless to say, the book was published. But here's a key for what I want everybody to take away right now is the title of the book, Better Than You Think. Okay, what does that mean, or where did that come from, right? And so when I'm writing the book, it's 16 chapters, and there's 16 chapters again, and under each chapter title, there's a bunch of stories, right? And these are stories that I've experienced along the way in my life. And I wanted to share with people a story of my life, the lesson I learned, and what you, the reader, can take away from that. And I thought that would be, really cool to do, not about Rob's autobiography, but about the lessons and experiences I had. And my hope is that the reader will be able to read the book and connect with at least one of my stories, that they can say, wow, I had a similar story just like that, but I didn't realize that was the lesson I was supposed to get out of it. And so there's plenty of stories in this book. And so we're coming to the time to publish the book, and I didn't have a title yet. And I'm going back and forth with the editor, had 42 titles at one point. And she's like, Rob, if you want us to hit this deadline, you need to come up with a title. So I came in my home office, sat at my desk, and I looked at my board. I got this big whiteboard with all the chapter titles and all the stories written underneath of it. And I looked at it, I'm looking at my life. I'm looking at all these great stories. And it hit me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my life is better than I thought it was. And it was in that moment, I'm like, that's the title, Better Than You Think. And what my hope is that as we go through this, that you're thinking about stories in your lifetime, and you're thinking about the lessons you've learned. And when you look back on these stories, because a lot of times we're always striving to get more. We're always striving to go further, make more money, do better, be better, right? We're always striving for this. And very rarely do we take a step back and reflect on the life we've lived, reflect on the relationships we've built. Very rarely do we do that. And when we do, we can appreciate our own lives. We can appreciate what we've accomplished and the lessons we've learned and the experiences we've had. Because let's face it, a lot of times we have these good experiences. We're all rah-rah and, raising our arms up like that. But sometimes when we have these negative experiences, we don't really dive into the meanings behind them and what we've learned and the good things that come from them, the silver lining, so to speak. So how many people have ever heard, hey, there's always a silver lining in something out there? If you have, again, give me a thumbs up in the chat room or give me an okay there, because we all have experienced that. But do we look for it? Do we go looking for it? So do we want to increase our awareness? So, one of the things I would recommend you do to really appreciate and increase your awareness of the things that have gone on in your life is it's kind of create this, like, the story of your life or a journey wall. And on the top of like a piece of paper, just take 5-year increments of your life from like 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, and so on. And so you got this stream of years going across the top of the page, and going down to the left side of the page. What I want you to do is what victories did you have in those 5-year segments? What losses did you have? What lessons did you learn? Who helped you along the way? What people were involved? And then finally, did you feel the hand of God was involved? Did you feel providence was there working on your behalf in those time frames? And so if you draw this journey wall out, or the story wall out, if you draw it out and you look back and reflect on these stories, and it takes some time, you just can't do it all at once, but take some time and you marinate on it. And then you see your life, you see how your life has gone by, and you see the experiences you had. And in those moments, you're increasing your awareness. You're increasing awareness of the life you've lived. But the idea is going forward is to capture those moments that fulfill you, that fill you with joy, and just to like make you appreciate where you are in that moment. And that's like to me, that's where the most valuable time of our lives come from, is when we can appreciate those moments and live that joy-filled life. So take that time. I encourage you to do that. So that's the whole awareness piece. And where I want to go from there is there's a friend of mine several years ago. He said, Rob, he goes, you will go to the next level in your life and the next level in your business when you start listening to the voice inside. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, you got to be aware that a voice is talking to you, right? And when you're aware that the voice is talking to you, then you got to say, okay, one, some people don't even hear the voice. Two, they're aware that the voice is talking to them and they don't do anything about it. And three, they hear the voice, they listen to the voice, and they take action. Now, taking action could cause you to succeed or fail. Obviously, we want to succeed, and we take the win or the accomplishment, and we celebrate it. But if we fail, we take the time to decipher and understand why we failed, or understand what we learned along the way, what the journey was all about. Like Jim Rohn says, want to be a millionaire for what it will make of you. What it will make of you. So it's not, so I've said this in my book, people want to go from A to Z without experiencing B to Y. And it's in between B to Y that life happens. It's in between B to Y that we have these moments that we need to focus on and experience them in the moment, because what happens, moments go by and sometimes you're like, oh, wow, I missed that. But when you get better and honing your awareness skills, you experience these moments and you're aware of them in the moment. And life, and a fulfilling life, is about experiencing moments. And we can experience those moments and capture them. Then we're living a fulfilling life. And we can share those moments with others, with our family, with our children, with our spouses, with the parents and friends. And sharing those moments helps other people become more aware of the moments in their lives. And that was one of the purposes of this book. So a quick story for you. This guy tells me, he says, Rob, you go to the next level in your life and in your business, you start listening to that voice inside of you. So I'm a Toastmaster. Anybody ever hear Toastmasters? So Toastmasters, if you've heard of Toastmasters, give me okay in that chat room over there. So Toastmasters is a public speaking forum. And it's a place where you learn to be a better public speaker, obviously. But it's also a place where you become a better listener. And so I had joined Toastmasters, and I've been a part of it for a couple of years. I've done pretty well with it. And I was asked to be a guest to speak. Now, has anybody ever been in jail before? If you've been in jail, say aye. I've been in jail before, as a guest, I might add, just as a guest. So anyway, so I was asked to speak in prison, okay? And I was going to speak to 20, it was going to be 20 inmates in Jessup prison. It was the pre-release facility in Jessup, Maryland. And it was a Toastmaster event, and they'd asked me to speak there. So I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to present to these guys in prison. I want to give them a message of hope. I don't just want to give them any old speech. And what was going to happen is they were having a evaluation contest, and they were going to evaluate my presentation. So it was 10 guys that were going to evaluate it. So I didn't want to just give them any old speech. I wanted to give them a message of hope. So I sat there and I thought to myself, what am I going to talk about? And I'm like, wow. All of a sudden this light bulb goes off. I'm like, I'm going to title my speech Jailbreak, right? And I'm like, I'm fired up. I'm like, have you ever gotten like this great idea that comes at you and you're all fired up? Give me a little thumbs up there in the chat room. Yeah, it happens all the time. But what else happens when we get these great aha moments? We might sit there and back down and say, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough to do that. Or that's not right. So I had this thought about doing this presentation entitled Jailbreak. In prison. So I'm thinking, this is a great idea. And I thought about it for 5 minutes. I'm like, it's a great idea, but if I take a presentation titled Jailbreak in the prison, I'm thinking I might cause a problem. I'm thinking as soon as I say the title of the speech, the guards outside the room are going to have their shotguns cocked and say, uh-oh, and then we're going to have a lockdown. So I started saying, there's no way I can do this. There's no way I can title my presentation Jailbreak. So I was struggling for a few days and thinking, what am I going to do? And then I thought about what that gentleman told me that time. He said, Rob, you will go to the next level in your life and in your business when you listen to that voice inside of you. So it was in that moment, I'm like, Jailbreak, that's what it is, and I'm going with it. We're going with it. So here we are, the morning of the presentation. I'm in prison. I'm in this room. It's 20 guys in there, and it's a very small room. And the president of the club introduces me, and he says, Rob Commodari is going to be doing our presentation today, and the title of his speech is Jailbreak. And he says it again, Rob Commodari, Jailbreak. Now, before every presentation, I'm ready to do, I turn around and I say a quick prayer, and I'm like, God, let the words come out the way they need to be spoken, and let them be heard the way they need to be heard. And if this doesn't work out, it's your fault, not mine. So I do that all the time. Anyway, so he introduces me, and I look out. I look at these 20 guys, and I say to them, I said, hey, I'm planning a jailbreak. I got to know, you're in or you're out. It's a simple question, and I need a simple answer. Are you in or you out? And 20 guys are looking at me, and they're like staring at me like this, and like, this guy's goofy. He's planning a jailbreak. So I didn't say anything for about 20 seconds. And all of a sudden, I looked out and I said, I'm not talking about breaking out of prison and running for freedom. I'm not talking about climbing a fence and running for freedom or digging under the wall, breaking the wall down and running for freedom. I'm talking about breaking down the walls that you and I and everybody in this room have inside our own minds. I'm talking about breaking down the walls of fear, hate, anxiety, jealousy. I'm talking about breaking down those walls. So I'm going to ask you one more time, are you in or are you out? And I'm telling you, I had 20 guys jumping up, giving me the old Arsenio Hall rant and saying, woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, God, we got him. We got him right where we want him. So I went on. I talked for about 7 or 8 minutes, and I talked about breaking down the walls with hope. And so we did this long. We did this presentation, and I did a lot of Shawshank Redemption analogies, and it was a very impactful presentation. I finished the last minute of the presentation with this, and I said to them, I said, look, think about it. You've lived this life. You've been in jail, and now you're going for freedom. And it's the night before you're released. And I'm thinking to them, I'm like, remember in Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne, he escaped prison by crawling through 300 yards of a waste pipe. And I want you to think of your prison or that hall, that corridor in prison as a waste pipe, and you're walking your last 300 yards to your freedom. And I'm like, okay, you go to bed at night the night before you're getting out, and the guard walks into your cell. He slams the door shut, and boom. You say to yourself, I'm never going to hear that noise again. And then you get up in the morning, you're walking down the corridor, you're 200 yards from freedom, and you hear the echoes of the guard's shoes going click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. You say to yourself, I'm never going to hear that noise again. And then you're approaching the doorway, and there is no turning back. You're 50 yards out, you're 40, you're 30, you're 10 yards away from freedom. All of a sudden, you're standing at the entrance of prison, or the exit of prison, let's say. And you got to ask yourself one final question as you're about to walk through those doors. You got to say to yourself, do I get busy living, or do I get busy dying? What are you going to choose? And in that moment, man, 20 guys jump up again. They're hooting and hollering. And it was just an awesome reaction to the presentation I just given. But the story goes on. And so what happens is they have to evaluate me. And there's 10 guys evaluating me, right? So the first guy, he's evaluating me. And I'm sitting on the side. He's talking to me, directly at me. And I'm like, yeah, that's not it. We got to talk to the audience. So I said, look, I'm going to get out in the middle of the audience. And when you evaluate, look at the audience and not at me. So I'm sitting in the middle, 19 guys, and the guys presenting one by one. So then the last guy gets up there, and he's doing his evaluation, and he says, Mr. Rob, he goes, I want to thank you for coming down here today and spending your time and inspiring us today. Thank you so much for that. He goes, and thank you for the words of wisdom. But Mr. Rob, I don't want you to get mad at me for what I'm about to say, but if I didn't know any better, I would have thought you were one of us. And the guys in the audience, they're like, oh my God, how's Rob going to respond to that? Some of them laughed, some of them were a little pensive. And I looked at him and I said, you just paid me the biggest compliment you could ever pay me. I said, I just came down here. I wanted to give you guys a message of hope. I wanted to connect with you guys. And with the compliment you paid me, that's what you told me we did. And we connected. Now, a couple years later, I get a letter in the mail from one of the inmates thanking me for my time there and telling me how he was inspired. And he wanted me to help him. And we were told not to really dig in and help anybody respond to these letters. But the point I'm making here is if I didn't listen to that voice and I didn't follow through with that message, I wouldn't have connected with at least one person. I wouldn't have made the difference in somebody else's life. So we have our stories, and we should be listening to the voice inside of us. And we listen to that voice inside of us, and we take action on it. That's when life happens, and that's when things get great for us. But again, so many of us fight it. We fight it. But when we surrender to the voice that's talking to us and telling us to do good, even though it's hard, even though it's challenging, that's when life gets really good. So what do we do next? Well, we talked about awareness and how to increase your awareness and improve it. We talked about listening to that voice inside, but we have to understand what season we're in. So there's seasons of life. There's seasons of every area in our lives, whether it's spiritual, there's seasons in our families, there's seasons with friendships, there's seasons in work. And right now, as you all know, we've been in a pretty rough season for the last 3 or 4 months. It's been tough with the COVID and the the people getting laid off of work, being holed up in their homes, not being able to go out and even give people a hug, whether it's your mom or your dad or your best friend or your brother or sister. It's just the isolation of it all, and it's been rough. It's been a tough go for a lot of people. So, know what season you're in. So like right now, I would say, we're in a season of humility. We've been humbled. Things are rolling along. We were in the best best economy we've had in years, and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under our feet, and the season's changed. Again, people have lost their jobs. Some people may lose their homes. People are dying. I mean, this is a tough place to be. So we have to know what season we're in. So we're in that season of humility. But in that season of humility, I think we need to take note of all the good that's going on, of everything we need to be grateful for. Has anybody out there ever like had something like negative happen, and you said in that moment, what could I be grateful for in that moment of the challenge, in that negative experience, even in a good experience? What am I grateful for? Do you have a gratitude journal? Who has a gratitude journal out there? Anybody have a gratitude journal? Write in the chat box, I. It's important to be grateful for what you have. Because so many of us, and I'm guilty, I'm so guilty of this, I'm always striving to do better and I want more, and we compare and we compete with other people, and we're not grateful for what we have. So, what season are you in? So this is a season of humility, it's a season to be grateful, and it's a season to persevere, right? This is the time to persevere. Like when this all went down with the COVID, you had a choice, really. You could stick your head in the sand like an ostrich, or you can come out fighting. Come out fighting and do what you need to do to get through it. Persevere, because it ain't easy. It's not an easy journey to go through this and experience what you're experiencing, what others are experiencing, what I'm experiencing. This is no one's been through this ever before, and so we're like going through it together. And we need to persevere through it and understand it is a season. Now, no one knows how long this season lasts. But what we do know is that we can take every moment that we experience in this season and be grateful for that time. So I'll share with you a story here about the seasons of life. So a lot of, we have seasons of friendships, right? I don't know if I mentioned that before, but the seasons of friendships. And like what happens, a lot of times our kids go to school and they're friends, and we become friends with the parents of the kids' friends, and we're hanging out with them, right? And 8th grade comes and everybody goes off to high school. And then you're not seeing each other as much, so that season has changed. So it's a change of season there. And there's friendships. You might have a friend for such a long time, and then for whatever reason, you go your separate ways. I had a buddy of mine that we were like best friends, and we had gotten involved in a real estate transaction, and we were like really good friends from the time we were like 13 or 14 years old, and done a lot of stuff together, experienced life together. Now he's married, I'm married, and we get involved in this real estate transaction, and it goes south. I mean, we made money on it, but it just didn't go well. And when we're done and ready to complete the transaction, there's a lot of bitterness. I can say there's bitterness on both sides. And maybe there's frustration and anger or whatnot. And what had happened is, we completed the transaction. We both took our money, and we didn't talk for 6 years. 6 years. Anybody ever have a situation where you had a good friend and you guys something just fell apart and you didn't talk for a while? If you've had that happen, put a sad face there in the chat box, because it happens. And let me tell you, I was hurt, I was sad, I was frustrated, I was mad, I was resentful, I had all these emotions going on. And I went to one of those Toastmaster meetings one night, and the woman who was speaking was talking about being grateful for the season you're in. And she was talking about like how when friendships end and seasons end, we have this bitterness and this anger, resentfulness inside of us. And what that is a poison. It's a poison. And if we let that poison manifest and it stays inside of us, and it gets worse, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And then you become miserable. And she said, what we need to do is be grateful for the time we had with that person. So you get to thinking, she's talking, and I'm thinking about this relationship I have with my buddy, and how mad and resentful when all this poison was going on. I was like, every day I was getting up, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So what I did after that night of that event, I went home and I got my journal. I got a journal out, and I wrote my friend a letter. And I wrote him a letter. In that letter, I stated all the things I was grateful for. The good times that we had, the years that we hung out together, the experiences that we had together, all the things we've done and things we shared together. And I told him how grateful I was for that. And when I finished the letter, I wished him well, and I wished him all the best that he could do in his life, and him and his family. And I folded that letter up, and I put it back in my journal. I didn't fold it up in the journal. I just closed the journal. And I never sent him the letter. But what happened was I got that poison out of me. I got that resentfulness and that anger. It left. And as soon as I got all that stuff out of my head and onto a piece of paper, I was able to feel good. I was able to feel free. I actually had like a moment of like fulfillment. I was like, I'm grateful for the years I had with my buddy. Now it's time to move on to the next season. So are you aware of where you are? Are you aware of who you are? Aware of all the moments you've had in your life? Have you listened to that voice inside of you? Or have you not? Are you aware of what season you're in? So my last question for you, with another story, of course, is what's holding you back? What's holding you back from becoming more aware? What's holding you back from listening to that voice and acting on that voice that you hear? What's holding you back from understanding the season you're in and living the best life you can, living to your fullest potential, living a life of fulfillment? What's holding you back? So I'm a guy, one of 7 kids, grew up in a 745 square foot house in Baltimore City. Dad worked 3 jobs, so I didn't get to see my dad much as a kid. And, we were poor. I can say that. Had food stamps for a short period of time. So I was always on the go. I got my foot on the gas. I'm going 90 miles an hour. Going 90 miles an hour. But for some reason, I wasn't going anywhere. And I couldn't figure it out. And I'm just back and forth, foot on the gas, foot on the brake, not going, burning out like a tire. Like you sit in the car, you got your foot on the gas, foot on the brake, and start burning rubber, as they say. So I'm a baseball player, played college baseball, loved baseball. When I was 5 years old, that's all I wanted to do was play baseball. And when I was 5 years old, I remember my dad coming into our living room and he gave me the first glove I ever was going to have. It was a little baseball glove for my cousin Mario. So we lived in a family of Italians and hand-me-downs. And so he brought me this first baseball glove he ever had. And so when fast forward, it was June of 2001. And what had happened was Cal Ripken Sr. had passed. If you're not from Baltimore, you should know he's one of the greatest baseball players ever played a game, or most consistent baseball player ever played a game was Cal Ripken Jr. So his father had passed. And I would listen to all those sports radio shows and talk shows, and all over the place they were talking about the relationship Cal and his dad had. So I don't know if anybody out there, you ever have you have good relationships with your dad, or if you had a tough relationship with your dad, just let us know, one or the other, maybe not. But, it's not that I had a bad relationship. I just didn't have a relationship. So I'm thinking, I'm listening to all these sports talk shows and listening to how good a relationship Cal and his dad had. I'm like, wow, I've never had that. And I'm like, in fact, I've never heard my dad say, I love you or I accept you. Never heard the words, I love you, son, or I accept you, son. And my he's an immigrant from Italy and old school, he wasn't touchy-feely guy. And I'm like, man, I said, you know what? I never played a game of catch with my dad. Never heard him say, I love you. I'm gonna find that first glove he ever gave me. I'm gonna play a game of catch. So that was June. Here we are, November, December, and I haven't found the glove yet. I'm praying to God. I'm like, this is such a great idea. Why can't I find this glove? And so 5 days before Christmas, I'm at my parents' house. My dad had a hernia surgery and he couldn't lift anything. We're sitting at the table and he says, Rob, before you leave, I need you to get this heavy box out of the closet downstairs, as I got to get something out of it. And I know you're all thinking right now that glove was in the box. So I hate to disappoint you, but it wasn't. Anyway, so we finished, go down the basement. This big box is in the closet. I got to put my hands in like a forklift. Got to stoop down, hands in like a forklift, stand up, back up, turn around with the box. And as I turn around with the box, I look down, and there's a glove. There's the glove, my first glove that my dad had ever given me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to play catch with my dad on Christmas Day. So I started getting a little emotional, and I asked my dad, I said, hey, can I have the glove? I got to go. And he goes, yeah, of course it's yours. And I said, Dad, wait a minute. We've had hand-me-downs, and I had given it to my sister. It even had her name in the glove. So he said, take the glove, it's yours. So I go home, and I get in front of my computer, and I write my dad a poem. I write this poem to him, and the tears, as the words were flowing, the tears were flowing. And it was just an unbelievable moment. I'm going to take a second here. I'm going to read you this poem. And what had happened was, I write the poem, I put the baseball glove in the box with the ball in it and the poem on top, and I wrap it up. And we're going to go over to my dad's house or my brother's house for Christmas Eve as we exchange gifts. And like I said, I'm one of 7 kids. So it was about 30, 35 of us over there. And, we're celebrating Christmas. It was time to exchange gifts. And, I was very nervous about what was about to happen, because I was going to give my dad the first baseball glove I ever had. I'm going to ask him for a game to catch on Christmas Day. So we're standing there, and my wife's sitting next to me, and I'm like, you're standing next to me, and I'm like, Deb, I can't do this. You know, this is gonna be crazy. And she goes, it's your idea, you're gonna do it. So I put the box in front of my dad. He opens it up, he looks at the poem, and he starts crying. Tears are rolling down his cheeks. He goes, we play catch when the weather gets warm, right? I'm like, no, Dad, we're playing tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I don't care how cold it is, and Mom's taking a picture. I'm going to read you this poem, okay? Make sure you got tissues with you. Anyway, it says, title of the poem is Some Catch. Say, hey, Dad, it's Christmas time again, and families all around the world are getting ready to share their Christmas joys. As usual, moms and dads get a list together from their little girls and boys. Some lists include such things as cars and trucks, while others include things like Barbie dolls and makeup. Boys will ask for video games and sports things, while girls may ask for dresses, clothes, and angels with little wings. You've been a dad for 36 years now and worked for 45 plus years as well. You've had the opportunity to raise 7 children, which is priceless, but I'm sure it caused all kinds of hell. I could not imagine how hard it must have been with all that weight upon your shoulders, Dad. But I think I'm beginning to understand now that I'm much older. Dad, we're all older now, and most of us have moved away. Now it's time for you to have some fun because we all know you've earned your pay. If I could ask for one thing for Christmas, Dad, it would be no, not a house, not a car, not even a watch. All I want to do, Dad, is play some catch. From the heart. December 25th, 2001. It's a very emotional time for me, a very emotional moment. We played catch that day. Remember, I told you I was a kid that I had one foot on the gas and one on the brake. You know, I was going nowhere, 90 miles an hour going nowhere because I didn't know I was loved and I didn't know I was accepted. I never heard those words. Now, logically speaking, you think, of course, you got to know you're loved and accepted. I'm a words of affirmation guy. And I needed to hear those words I hadn't heard. I was 34 years old at the time. So now we're playing catch. And I throw the ball to my dad, and he accepts it. He catches it. He accepts it. And in that moment, he didn't say it, but I heard it. He said, I accept you, son. And then he threw the ball back to me. And when he threw the ball back to me, I heard, I love you, son. I love you. He didn't say it, but I heard it. So in that moment, I'm like, I am loved. I am accepted. My dad loves me and he accepts me. He just doesn't know how to say it. But when I realized that metaphor, when I realized it, I was able to take that foot off the brake. And now I didn't have to go 90 miles an hour. I only had to go 45, so to speak. And I was going somewhere. And I was able to take that foot off the brake and be who I was supposed to be the person that God created me to be. So I'm asking you, what's holding you back? What's holding you back from being the best you can be, from living that fulfilling life you're supposed to live, and being who you're supposed to be, accomplishing things you're supposed to accomplish? What's holding you back? You know, I don't know. I don't know what it is for you. And of course, there are still things that hold me back. I have my own insecurities, and I still make mistakes and do this, that, and the other thing. But there was a key moment that I remember, and I was aware of it in that moment, that I realized what was holding me back. So to discover, my encouragement to you is to, if you're having that struggle or that challenge, discover what's holding you back. What is holding you back? So I would love for you to, pick up a copy of the book, but what I'm going to do for you, if you go to my website at www.robcommodariauthor.com, you can download the free workbook that I have that takes you through this book with a series of questions. And I have a free resource guide. I would love for you to take part of that. And so please, if you're willing to do that, sign on, get those freebies. And, as a special offer I like to do is, and I've got to work this with Blaine. I got to get together. But what I like to do is issue you a free copy of the ebook. I can do that. And I'll have to pick a certain date to do that, but we'll get you a free copy of the ebook. And I can tell you the value is priceless, because when you discover what's holding you back, when you discover a new level of awareness, when you discover that, life is going to be better than you think. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. I think I want to encourage you to dive into your own lives. Pick up a copy of the book. It's on Audible right now. It just went live on Audible 2 weeks ago from the time from this point. And I can't thank you enough for listening in today, for tuning in. But my encouragement to you is, don't buy this book or get this book for me. Get it for you. Get it for you so you can maybe follow the path, the journey to living a more fulfilling life. We have they say visualize your future, right? And we have these visions, use the vision board, this, that, and the other thing, right? Visualize. And when you visualize, you're looking to the future. But how often do we reflect? We've already been on a journey, and now we take a look back. And sometimes when we take that look back, that's when we see the real diamonds, the diamonds that have been dug up in our lives, and see how fulfilling life has been for us. So again, pick up a copy of the book and allow yourself to discover all that there's to discover about you, within you, and to help you see that your life, the lives of people around you close to you, are better than you think. Thanks so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of these speakers. You got a great group of people coming at you for the next 4 days, and I'm excited to listen to them too. Take care, and Blaney, thanks again. Bye-bye.